My ex pretended to be sick so I'd pay her bills. Then I found out the truth and took everything she bought with my money. In return, I'm a 28-year-old guy, and I thought compassion was my biggest strength and it became my weakness. I've always believed that love meant showing up no matter what. I worked long hours as a project coordinator, managing tight deadlines and demanding clients, but I never let that stop me from being there for the people I cared about, especially Sarah Dot. Sarah came into my life like a soft breeze after a storm. She was funny, kind, and a little fragile in a way that made me want to protect her. When we first started dating, she told me about how tough her past relationships were men who didn't take her seriously, who called her too emotional. I remember thinking, not me. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be the person who made her feel safe. She'd often rest her head on my shoulder and whisper, "You're the only man who truly cares about me." I didn't realize it then, but that line became my leash. I started rearranging my world around her driving across town after work just to bring her soup when she said she was tired. Missing hangouts with friends because she felt lonely. It didn't feel like sacrifice at the time. It felt like love. Then, slowly, she began mentioning feeling off. Fatigue, headaches, dizzy, spells little things that she brushed off with a weak smile. I told her to see a doctor, but she'd laugh and say, "I'll be fine. You worry too much." Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I pushed the thought away. After all, she was gentle, vulnerable. She needed me that night when I held her hand and said, "No matter what happens, I'll always take care of you." She smiled faintly. I didn't know then those words would cost me everything. A few weeks later, Sarah's off days became constant. She'd call me from bed, her voice small and shaky. "I can barely move," she whispered once. "Everything hurts." I rushed over every time, bringing soup, medication, whatever she needed. She looked pale, wrapped in a blanket, eyes glassy with exhaustion. She said doctors couldn't figure it out. Maybe autoimmune, maybe chronic fatigue. "They're running more tests," she explained, handing me a stack of vague printouts filled with medical jargon. I wasn't a doctor, but the papers looked legitimate enough. She talked about specialists, new prescriptions, and hospital visits that never seemed to give answers. One night, she broke down crying. "They want to do another round of scans, but I don't have enough left for rent." Her voice cracked on the word rent, and something inside me just snapped. I couldn't watch her suffer like that. I told her I'd handle it. Rent, bills, groceries, whatever she needed. I transferred the money that same night. At first, it felt good being able to help, to take care of someone who needed me. She hugged me so tightly, I could feel her heartbeat. "You're my guardian angel," she whispered, tears wetting my shirt. I held her, thinking this was what love meant, being there when it's hardest. Even if it hurt a little. Soon, helping became routine. I covered her rent while she got better, brought her food when she was too weak to cook, and paid for what she called life-saving treatments. I never questioned it because I saw the fear in her eyes every time she talked about her condition. Or maybe I wanted to believe that fear was real. Each time I looked at her, I saw the woman I loved fighting an invisible battleland. I was determined to win it for her. If love meant sacrifice, I was all in. It didn't take long for Sarah's illness to consume everything. My mornings started with her texts. I couldn't sleep again. "Can you come by?" My nights ended with late phone calls filled with whimpers and "I just need you here." She stopped working completely, saying the stress made her symptoms worse. Soon, every plan, every decision revolved around how she felt that day. I stopped going out with friends. If I told her I wanted one night to unwind, she'd go silent and then text, "Guess I'll just suffer alone," like always. That guilt hit harder than anything. I'd cancel plans immediately, drive across town, and find her curled up on the couch, looking small and fragile. She'd smile faintly when I walked in, whispering, "You're the only one who understands." Weeks blurred together. I handled her groceries, cleaned her place, even dealt with her landlord when rent was late. It became an unspoken rule. If something needed doing, I'd do it. The weight of it all crept into my chest like a stone. I started missing deadlines at work, showing up late, distracted and drained. Sometimes I'd catch myself wondering if she was really as sick as she said, but then she'd cry, apologizing for being a burden, promising she'd get better soon. And just like that, the doubt vanished. I couldn't stomach the idea of being cruel to someone who was suffering one Saturday. I finally took a break, just a few hours, to grab coffee with an old friend. As we chatted, he mentioned something casually that made my stomach tighten. "I swear I saw Sarah at that new cafe yesterday," he said, laughing with a friend. "She looked great, man healthy." I forced a smile, but my pulse started pounding. Healthy at first, I told myself. My friend must have been mistaken. Maybe he saw someone who looked like Sarah. Maybe she'd had a rare good day. But once that seed of doubt was planted, it grew roots I couldn't ignore. I started noticing things, small inconsistencies that didn't add up. On nights when she claimed she was too weak to move, I'd see her posting pictures on social medias, smiling selfies with perfect lighting, captions like "healing energy only" or "trying to stay positive." In those photos, she didn't look sick at all. She looked vibrant. One night, I asked gently, "Sarah, if you're feeling this bad, how are you up late taking photos?" She sighed, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm just trying to pretend for my followers. If I let them see how bad it really is, they'll disappear. You don't understand. It's the only thing that keeps me distracted from the pain." Her voice trembled just enough to make me feel guilty for asking. I apologized, held her hand, and told her I believed her. A few days later, she mentioned her car insurance being overdue. Then her phone bill. Then a credit card payment. I didn't even hesitate. I covered them all. I told myself I was removing her stress so she could focus on healing. Each transaction felt like proof of love, like a promise I was keeping. But something inside me kept scratching for air. Every time I went to her apartment, there was something: new designer shoes, a new handbag, jewelry that definitely wasn't cheap. When I asked, she smiled lightly and said, "Oh, gifts from my aunt. She hates seeing me miserable." I forced a laugh, pretending to believe her. But as I looked around that room, filled with expensive gifts, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real sickness wasn't in her body. It was somewhere much deeper. It happened by accident. One evening, I was helping Sarah with her laundry, something I did often, since she claimed lifting heavy baskets made her dizzy. As I folded clothes, I noticed a crumpled receipt tucked inside one of her jacket pockets. It wasn't from a pharmacy or hospital. It was from a high-end boutique, thousands spent on clothes, spa treatments, and even a weekend resort booking. At first I thought there had to be some explanation. Maybe it was an old receipt, something before she got sick. But the date was from 2 days ago. 2 days ago, she'd texted me, crying that she couldn't get out of bed and needed help paying for a new prescription. My chest tightened as I scanned the totals, almost the exact amount I'd sent her that week. My hands shook so badly, I dropped the paper. I tried to breathe, but it felt like the room had shrunk around me. When she walked back in, humming softly, I forced a smile and pretended nothing was wrong. That night, while she slept, I logged into our shared budgeting app, the one we used to track bills. Every transfer I'd made for medical help matched dates of luxury purchases, designer stores, salons, restaurants, trips. It wasn't just coincidence, it was choreography. Every doctor visit was a shopping spree. Every bad day was a cover. But I didn't confront her. Not yet, I needed to be sure. I needed proof, not emotion. So I played my part: supportive, understanding, naive. Meanwhile, I started saving everything. Receipts, bank statements, screenshots of her social media posts where she was tagged in places she swore she never went. Each file felt like a piece of a puzzle I didn't want to finish. But I knew the moment was coming, the one where her lies would collapse under their own weight. And when that moment arrived, I wanted to be ready. The truth didn't come from a confrontation, it slipped out through gossip. A mutual friend mentioned, almost casually, that he'd seen Sarah working at a high-end boutique downtown. "She helped my sister pick out a dress," he said, laughing. "She goes by, I think it was Renee." Weird, right? My heart froze. Renee, that wasn't a middle name or nickname. I'd never heard it before. I thanked him, pretending it was nothing, but inside, everything twisted. I drove to that boutique the next day, and there she was, smiling behind the counter, radiant, perfectly healthy, laughing with customers. Her posture, her energy, her whole demeanor was unrecognizable. There wasn't a trace of the frail, trembling woman I'd been taking care of for months. I didn't go inside. I just watched through the window, numb. In that moment, everything rearranged itself in my head: the bad days, the excuses, the emotional breakdowns. It wasn't sickness. It was performance. Later that night, I went through her online profiles. Under her real name, She was quiet and sympathetic, the fighter, battling an invisible illness. But under her alias, Renee, she was an influencer, type-posting luxury outfits, spa visits, and captions about being a self-made woman who never needed help. That was when something inside me hardened. I didn't explode or cry. I just disconnected. I decided she wouldn't see it coming. I stopped transferring money. No explanations, no arguments, no drama. I told her I was handling some financial stress at work, and she pretended to understand. Within a week, the panic began. Her texts grew frantic. Did you forget the rent? The doctor's waiting on the deposit. You're giving up on me when I'm at my lowest. Every message dripped with guilt, manipulation, and desperation. But I just stared at the screen, silent, realizing for the first time I wasn't her guardian angel. I was her paycheck. She doubled down like a pro. One morning, I woke up to pictures of a hospital bed on for line, a pale arm with a wristband, a blurred monitor in the background. They admitted me overnight. I'm terrified. Please, can you wire me the deposit? Her messages were desperate, frantic, full of the same voice I'd heard for months. My chest tightened. I wanted to run to her. Instead, I paused. Something in the photos didn't sit right. The hospital tag in the picture had a date that didn't match the timestamp on her message. A shadow in the corner of one photo matched the lamp we had in her living room. I replayed them until the edges went fuzzy. My stomach turned into ice. I told myself to be careful, so I went to the hospital. I gave her name, the dates she'd sent, and watched the receptionist's face go blank. There's no record of her admission, she said. No consultations, no scans, nothing. I asked for patient logs, and a nurse typed and printed a clean sheet that read, no matching entries, standing there under the fluorescent lights. I felt my gut drop in a way I'd never felt before, like someone had pulled the floor from under me, back in my car. I replayed every moment, the late-night selfies, the salon tags, the way she'd cried when I handed over a transfer. It wasn't just fraud. It felt personal, like a slow theft of everything I trusted about love. I felt sick, not because of money, but because she'd weaponized my empathy. When she called that night, pleading, I don't know what I'll do without you, please don't abandon me, I didn't yell. I didn't sob. I listened and let the silence grow heavy between her sentences. Then, something cold and steady replaced the hurt, a plan. Not revenge for spectacles, something clean, legal, and surgical that left no room for pity. I closed my eyes, pictured every receipt, every transaction, every designer bag bought on my dime. I picked up my phone and dialed the number I'd been avoiding. The next morning, I went straight to my bank. I didn't tell Sarah a word. I sat across from the advisor, my palms cold, and asked to review every transfer, every recurring payment, every shared account. By noon, I'd frozen everything with her name attached. When I saw the totals, my throat went dry. Months of my hard-earned money bled into her lifestyle like a slow leak dot. Then came the real gut punch. The advisor pointed out that several purchases, furniture, electronics, even the designer handbags she flaunted, had been made on my credit card, under my billing address. Technically, every item she'd bought was in my name. I walked out with a thick folder of statements, each page a monument to my stupidity and her deception. That night, instead of confronting her, I sat at my desk with my laptop glowing in the dark. I searched through legal forums, credit protection sites, anything that could tell me what my rights were. And there it was, in plain language. If a purchase is made using your card or credit, it legally belongs to you. Every couch, every TV, every little luxury she'd surrounded herself with, it was all mine. The more I read, the calmer I became. Anger had burned itself out, replaced by a quiet, surgical focus. I made calls, took notes, and began listing every item I'd seen in her apartment. I wasn't going to scream or beg. I wasn't even going to tell her what I knew. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about balance, about taking back what was stolen, not out of vengeance, but principle if she used lies to build her comfort. I'd use truth to take it all back. I picked a Saturday afternoon to end it when I knew she'd be home, surrounded by the audience she loved most. I knocked, and the door swung open to laughter and perfume. Sarah stood there with a glass of wine, surrounded by a few of her friends. Mid-story about my useless ex who can't let go, When she saw me, her face froze for half a second before she smirked. "Wow," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Didn't expect you to show up looking so serious. Still the boring, reliable one." I smiled, actually. I said, stepping inside, "I came to drop something off." I placed a thick folder on her marble countertop. Inside were bank statements, credit card records, transaction logs, and a signed notice from my lawyer. "What's this?" She laughed, flipping through until her laughter thinned out. "That," I said quietly, "is every item you've bought in this apartment with my money? Every piece of furniture, every appliance, every handbag. All purchased under my account, my credit, my name." Her friends glanced around, eyes darting between the designer couch, the giant TV, the glimmering coffee machine. Sarah's face drained of color. "You're bluffing," she snapped. I gestured to the folder. "Legal ownership says otherwise. I'm just here to collect what's mine." She started pacing, her voice cracking. "You can't just take my things. You're ruining my life." I took out my phone, dialed, and within minutes, a pair of movers began hauling in boxes. Her friends stood frozen, whispering to each other as they watched her crumble. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I just watched quietly as the false world she'd built funded by my kindness, and her lies fell apart, piece by piece. When she screamed, "You're ruining my life," I finally looked her in the eyes and said, calm as ever, "No. You did that when you faked yours." The fallout was faster than I expected. Within days, word spread through our mutual circles. Screenshots of her fake hospital posts, her alternate Renee account, and the receipts I'd quietly compiled began circulating. I didn't post anything myself, but people talk, and the truth has a way of finding air. Friends who once praised her strength stopped replying to her stories. A few even messaged me, apologizing for believing her lies. One mutual friend texted, "I always thought something felt off, but wow, she really played everyone." Sarah tried to control the damage. She posted a long, teary video online accusing me of being controlling and abusive, claiming I'd stolen her belongings out of spite. But the comments section turned quickly. Viewers pointed out inconsistencies, screenshots of her shopping sprees, her boutique job, her duplicate accounts. Her crocodile tears couldn't drown the truth anymore. Within a week, her carefully curated online image collapsed. The boutique she worked at let her go. Brands she'd been promoting quietly dropped her name. Even her landlord, who finally realized the rent checks had been bouncing, gave her a notice to vacate. Her world was crumbling, and all I did was stay silent. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post cryptic quotes or bask in the chaos. I just went back to work, to quiet dinners, 2 nights where the air didn't feel heavy with lies. For the first time in months, my phone wasn't buzzing with her crises. But even as peace settled in, I felt something else, a hollow ache where empathy used to live. I'd learned that sometimes good hearts make easy targets. I told myself I didn't want revenge. I wanted closure. But as I watched her empire of deceit collapse, I realized sometimes they're the same thing. Months passed, and for the first time in a long while, my life felt mine again. I moved into a new apartment, small, quiet, but peaceful. No reminders of her perfume on the couch, no unopened boxes labeled Sarah's stuff, just space that felt earned, not stolen. I threw myself into work, into therapy, into rebuilding the pieces of trust she'd shattered. My therapist once told me, closure doesn't come from confrontation, it comes from detachment. She was right. The more distance I created, the lighter I felt. Nights that used to echo with anxious thoughts now ended with calm silence and sleep that didn't feel like a battle. Then, one evening, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in months. Sarah. For a moment, I just stared at it, half expecting my chest to tighten the way it used to. "It didn't," I answered. Her voice was shaky. "I know I messed up. I've lost everything. The apartment, the job, the followers. I need someone to talk to. Please, can we just start over?" I let her speak. Every word was drenched in regret, but beneath it, I could still hear the same manipulation, the tone of someone used to getting sympathy. When she finally went quiet, I said softly, "I do hope you find peace, Sarah, but you'll never get another dollar or ounce of sympathy from me. That chapter's over." There was silence on the line, long and hollow. Then a soft click. I sat there, staring out my window. the city lights reflecting against the glass, and for the first time since this all began, I felt something that wasn't anger or exhaustion. I felt free. She taught me one truth I'll never forget. Love without honesty is just debt, with interest. I didn't keep any of it: the couch, the electronics, the designer handbags that once lined her shelves like trophies. One by one, I sold everything she'd bought with my money. Watching it leave my storage unit felt strange, like finally exhaling after holding my breath for months. When the final sale cleared, I transferred a portion of it to a charity that funds real medical treatments for people who actually need help: cancer patients, children with chronic illnesses, people fighting real battles, not playing sick for sympathy. It wasn't about moral high ground, it was about balance. About sending that money somewhere it could do what it was meant to do: heal, not deceive. As I hit confirm donation, something in me loosened. I realized my strength didn't come from exposing her or collecting what I was owed. It came from reclaiming my peace, my time, myself. I didn't need to destroy her reputation. She'd done that herself. My revenge had already played out quietly, in every choice to move forward without her. Weeks later, I found myself walking past the cafe where we'd first met. Same smell of roasted beans, same flickering neon sign. For a moment, I could almost see that version of me, again young, eager, ready to believe that love meant saving someone. I smiled to myself, because now I knew better. Some people fake sickness to feel comfort. Others face truth to find peace. I finally understood which side I stood on. As I left the cafe behind, I didn't feel bitterness or prejudged calm, the kind that comes when you've been through fire and stepped out clean. She faked sickness for comfort. I faced the truth for peace, and in the end, that truth was all the revenge I'd ever need.